I think we all deserve to know the truth. My sister's voice cut through the quiet living room like a blade. The room still smelled of lilies from Grandma Eleanor's memorial. The soft hum of the ceiling fan and the quiet sniffles of relatives filled the air. Most people were still holding cups of coffee or tissues. Then Tiffany stood up, slowly, deliberately, and pointed straight at me. She stole Grandma's sapphire bracelet. For a moment, nobody moved. It felt like the air had frozen. My uncle's head turned slowly toward me. My aunt covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Tiffany lifted a small velvet jewelry box. It was empty. "It disappeared the night before Grandma died," she said. "And Rebecca was the last person in the house." The room exploded with whispers. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like the floor had disappeared under me. My name is Rebecca Whitmore. And in one sentence, my sister had just turned my whole family against me. No one asked if the accusation was true. Not a single person. Instead, they looked at me the way people look at someone who has already been caught. My cousin folded her arms tightly across her chest. My uncle shook his head in slow disappointment. Even my own mother looked confused, like she didn't know what to believe. Tiffany stood there calmly, her arms crossed. Her expression looked wounded and noble, like she hated having to expose the truth. "I didn't want to say anything," she said softly. "But Grandma deserved better than this." The whispers started again. She always did want attention. I knew something felt off. I can't believe she'd do that to her own grandmother. I tried to speak. My throat felt dry and tight. Nothing came out. The worst part wasn't the accusation. It was how easily everyone believed her. In just a few seconds, years of love and trust had disappeared. And I realized something painful. In this room, I was already guilty. Grandma Eleanor used to say something about Tiffany that always stayed in my mind. "Your sister smiles with her teeth," she once whispered to me, "but not with her eyes." At the time, I didn't fully understand what she meant. But now, standing in that living room while Tiffany accused me, I understood perfectly. Grandma had raised us after our parents' divorce. She had been the steady heart of our family. Tiffany spent years trying to impress her. Perfect grades, perfect clothes, perfect behavior. But I simply spent time with her. We drank tea in the mornings, worked in the garden in the afternoons, watched old movies at night. The sapphire bracelet Tiffany claimed I stole was one of Grandma's oldest pieces of jewelry. But she rarely wore it. She kept it locked inside her bedroom drawer. And suddenly, standing there in that room, a strange thought crossed my mind. Something about Tiffany's story didn't make sense. Everyone seemed to expect a dramatic reaction from me. Maybe tears, maybe shouting, maybe desperate pleading. Instead, I slowly stood up from my chair. My heart was racing, but my voice stayed steady. I didn't take it. The room grew quiet again. Tiffany tilted her head slightly. "Then where is it?" she asked. Her tone sounded gentle, but her eyes held a sharp edge. Gasps moved through the room. My aunt leaned closer, waiting for my answer. I met Tiffany's gaze. "If you're so sure I took it," I said quietly, "then we should probably check the security cameras." Her smile froze. Just for a moment. Then it returned, smaller than before. But I had already seen it. That tiny flicker of fear. 6 months earlier, Grandma had fallen in the kitchen late at night. She hadn't been hurt badly, but it scared me. After that, I insisted on installing a security system in her house. Cameras in the living room. Cameras near the front door. And one placed in the hallway that led to Grandma's bedroom. It wasn't for spying. It was simply for safety, in case she fell again or needed help. Now, those cameras might hold the answer to everything. Tiffany blinked. "You're saying there's footage?" she asked. "Yes," I replied calmly. The room filled with low murmurs. My uncle leaned forward. "Well, that should settle things." I watched Tiffany carefully, because for the first time since the accusation started, my sister didn't look confident. She looked nervous. "Those systems usually overwrite themselves," Tiffany said quickly. "There probably isn't anything left." Her words came out too fast, too defensive. I slowly reached for my phone. I set it up with cloud backup, I said. Nothing gets erased. The room fell silent again. Tiffany's fingers tightened around the jewelry box. Then she forced out a small laugh. Well, that's good, right? That means the truth will come out. But her eyes were no longer looking at me. They were fixed on the floor. And suddenly, a strange feeling crept into my chest. Something deeper than anger. Suspicion. Because Tiffany had sounded worried, not confident. And if she truly believed I stole the bracelet, why would she be nervous about the cameras? My uncle cleared his throat. Rebecca, can you access the recordings now? I have to request them from the security company, I explained. They keep everything stored online. How long will that take? My aunt asked. Maybe a few days. Tiffany let out a slow breath. It was small, but I noticed. See, she said, forcing another smile. Everything will get sorted out soon. Everyone nodded. The conversation slowly moved on. But something about her reaction kept bothering me. She didn't seem worried about being proven right. She seemed relieved that the footage wasn't available immediately. That thought stayed with me the entire evening. Because if someone was innocent, they usually wanted proof right away. But Tiffany looked like someone who had just been given time. Time to prepare. Or time to hope something didn't appear on that footage. That night, I sat alone in my apartment replaying the scene in my mind. One detail kept bothering me. Tiffany didn't say the bracelet was missing. She said I stole it. Directly. Confidently. Like she wasn't guessing. Like she needed everyone to believe it. That difference mattered. Because if someone simply noticed jewelry missing, they would say exactly that. But Tiffany had jumped straight to accusing me. And suddenly a strange thought appeared. What if the bracelet wasn't actually missing when she first looked? What if she expected it to be there? My mind kept turning the idea over. Something about this whole situation felt carefully planned. Like a trap. And I had walked straight into it without even knowing. 2 days later, Grandma's estate lawyer called the family. The will would be read the following week. That announcement explained a lot. Within minutes, Tiffany sent me a text message. Let's not make things messy before the will reading. I stared at the message for a long time. It sounded like a warning. Or maybe a threat. Suddenly the pieces started to connect. If the family believed I stole from Grandma, then anything Grandma left to me would look suspicious. Tiffany wouldn't even need to argue. My reputation would already be destroyed. And that realization made my stomach twist. My sister hadn't just accused me in anger. She had planned the moment perfectly. Right before the will reading. Right before the moment when Grandma's final wishes would be revealed. 3 days later, an email arrived from the security company. The footage files were attached. Hours of recordings. All labeled by time. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the folder. The night before Grandma passed away. Somewhere in those recordings was the truth. Either proof that I was innocent, or proof that my sister had destroyed my life with a lie. I opened the first video. The camera view showed the quiet hallway outside Grandma's bedroom. Soft yellow light from the wall lamp filled the space. Everything looked calm, peaceful, normal, but my heart pounded as I pressed play. Because that hallway had seen something important that night. Something none of us fully understood yet. And whatever happened there had already started tearing my family apart. The video showed the hallway clock clearly. 10:12 p.m. Then the bedroom door opened. And I appeared on the screen. I watched myself knock gently on Grandma's door. She had asked me to bring her tea that evening. I stepped inside with the tray. The hallway remained empty for about 20 minutes. Then I came back out. I closed the door softly and walked down the hallway toward the stairs. That was it. Nothing unusual. Nothing suspicious. No jewelry box. No bracelet. Just a normal visit. I leaned back in my chair and sighed slowly. But I kept watching. Because Tiffany claimed she wasn't in the house that night. And if she was telling the truth, the hallway should stay empty for the rest of the recording. But something inside me whispered otherwise. At 11:47 p.m., the hallway light flicked on again. A shadow appeared on the wall. Then someone stepped into the camera frame. Tiffany. She moved carefully, almost quietly. When she noticed the camera, she froze for a moment. Her eyes lifted directly toward it. My heart started pounding harder. Because during the memorial gathering, Tiffany had clearly said she wasn't in the house that night. But here she was, walking straight down the hallway. She glanced around quickly, then pushed open Grandma's bedroom door, and disappeared inside. The hallway stayed empty for several minutes. I leaned closer to the screen, because whatever happened next would reveal why my sister had been so confident when she accused me. Tiffany stayed inside Grandma's room for almost 15 minutes, much longer than my visit. Finally, the door opened again. She stepped back into the hallway, and in her hand, she was holding the velvet jewelry box. My breath caught in my throat. She looked around again before opening it. For a moment, her face showed something I had never seen before. Confusion, then frustration. She turned the box sideways, peering inside. The bracelet wasn't there. She rushed back into the room. The door opened and closed several times as she searched the drawer again. Finally, she returned to the hallway, still holding the empty box. Her shoulders were tense. Then she snapped the box shut and walked away quickly. And in that moment, everything became clear. Tiffany thought the bracelet was already gone. That was why she accused me. When she opened the drawer and found the box empty, she must have believed I took it earlier during my visit. That was the only explanation that made sense to her. But the footage proved something else. The bracelet had been missing before either of us looked, which meant someone else had taken it first. I stared at the screen, my thoughts spinning. The hallway recording still had hours left. So I scrolled back further in the timeline. Earlier that evening. Earlier than my visit. Earlier than Tiffany's. And when I reached the recording from 9 p.m., another figure appeared in the hallway. One I never expected. At exactly 9:03 p.m., the hallway camera captured someone stepping quietly toward Grandma's bedroom. My breath stopped when I recognized the person. It was our mother. She looked around carefully before entering the room. The door closed behind her. For several minutes, the hallway stayed empty. Then she came out again, and in her hand was the sapphire bracelet. My chest tightened. She slipped it quickly into her purse, then walked away. I sat frozen in front of the screen. Mom hadn't stolen it. At least, not in the way Tiffany believed. She must have taken it early to prevent Tiffany from fighting over it later. Grandma had been very sick. Everyone knew the end was close. Mom probably thought she was avoiding a family argument. But Tiffany never saw that moment. She only saw the empty box. And blamed me. Now I understood everything. Mom had taken the bracelet at 9:03 p.m. I visited Grandma at 10:12 p.m. Tiffany arrived at 11:47 p.m. and discovered the box empty. She assumed I had taken it earlier. But instead of asking me privately, she turned it into a public accusation. I sat quietly for a long time after the video ended, because the truth cleared my name. But it also revealed something painful. If I showed the entire footage to the family, Mom's secret would come out too, and that could break her relationship with Tiffany forever. The truth had become more complicated than I expected. For the first time since the accusation, I hesitated. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of messages. Most of them came from the family group chat. Tiffany had posted again, still waiting for Rebecca to explain where the bracelet is. Several relatives responded immediately. Some were angry. Others were disappointed. A few simply asked questions. But the overall message was clear. People still believed her. I watched the conversation quietly. Then Tiffany added another message. If she's innocent, she should return it. That sentence hit me harder than the first accusation. Because she wasn't just accusing me. She was enjoying it. Enjoying the attention. Enjoying the way the family turned against me. And suddenly my hesitation disappeared. I realized something important. The truth didn't destroy families. Lies did. 2 days later, the entire family gathered again. This time it was at the lawyer's office. Grandma's will was about to be read. Everyone sat around a large wooden table. The room felt tense. Heavy. Tiffany barely looked at me, but I noticed the confidence in her posture. She believed she had already won. If the will gave me anything important, she could use the theft accusation to challenge it. The lawyer opened the envelope slowly and began reading Grandma's final wishes. Small gifts were mentioned first. Jewelry, money, family keepsakes. Then the lawyer paused. The remainder of Eleanor Whitmore's estate. Everyone leaned forward, and the next words changed everything. The house, land, and primary savings account are left to Rebecca Whitmore. The room fell silent. Then the whispers began. Tiffany's chair scraped loudly against the floor as she stood. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. She manipulated Grandma. Her voice shook with anger. "This doesn't make sense." But inside, I felt calm, because suddenly Tiffany's accusation made perfect sense. She must have suspected something like this. Grandma and I had always been close, but Tiffany never imagined the will would favor me so strongly. Destroying my reputation before the reading would weaken my position. But she didn't know something. The truth was sitting quietly inside my laptop, waiting. The room filled with arguments. Some relatives looked shocked. Others looked thoughtful. Tiffany turned toward me with burning eyes. "You don't deserve this," she said. "You stole from her." The lawyer raised a hand. "Let's remain calm." But Tiffany kept talking. She manipulated Grandma. Everyone knows it. Her voice echoed through the room. That was the moment I slowly opened my laptop. "I think we should watch something," I said quietly. The room fell silent again. Tiffany frowned. "What are you talking about?" I turned the screen toward the family. Security footage from the night before Grandma passed away. And then I pressed play. The video showed the hallway outside Grandma's bedroom. First my visit appeared. I knocked, brought her tea, stayed 20 minutes, then left. No bracelet, no jewelry box, just a normal visit. The room remained quiet. Then the next clip played. Tiffany entering the hallway, her eyes darting toward the camera, her careful steps toward Grandma's room. Gasps spread across the table. "I thought you said you weren't there that night," my uncle said slowly. Tiffany's face turned pale, but the video continued, showing her leaving the room with the empty jewelry box. Her confused expression, her frantic search. By now, the room had become completely silent. But there was still one more clip. The final video showed the earlier recording. 9:03 p.m. Mom walking quietly into Grandma's room. Several relatives leaned forward. She exited minutes later, holding the sapphire bracelet, and slipped it into her purse. My aunt gasped softly. Mom looked down at the table. The video ended. Silence filled the room like a heavy fog. Finally, my uncle spoke. "So the bracelet was never stolen." The lawyer nodded slowly. "And Rebecca never took it." Every eye turned toward Tiffany. Tiffany's face had lost all color. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. "You accused your own sister," my uncle said quietly. "I thought she stole it," Tiffany whispered. "But you never asked her," my cousin replied. "You just told everyone." The room shifted. I could feel the judgment moving. The same judgment that had crushed me days earlier. Now it was aimed somewhere else. Tiffany looked around the table desperately. But no one defended her. Because the truth was clear. She hadn't searched for answers. She had chosen blame. And now everyone had seen it. The meeting ended shortly after that. Most relatives avoided looking at Tiffany. Some shook their heads in disappointment. Others simply stayed silent. As people slowly left the room, my uncle stopped beside me. "You handled that well," he said. I nodded quietly. Across the room, Tiffany stood alone. Her confidence had vanished completely. For the first time since the accusation, she looked unsure. Small. Not angry. Just exposed. And in that moment, I didn't feel victorious. I felt something calmer. Relief. Because the truth had spoken for itself. Several months later, I moved into Grandma's house. The garden looked exactly the way she loved it. Rows of flowers, fresh herbs by the kitchen window, and the same wooden porch where we used to drink tea together. Life felt peaceful again. Sometimes people asked if Tiffany ever apologized. She didn't. And honestly, that was fine. Because the real victory wasn't watching her fall. It was rebuilding the life she tried to damage. Every morning, I sat on Grandma's porch with a warm cup of tea. The sunlight touched the garden the same way it always had. And I remembered something she once told me. The truth always finds its way home. She was right.
It did.